It's the lens, it's the lens, it's the lens, gotta live diverse. It's the lens, it's the lens, it's the lens, to live diverse. You are listening to The Lens Living Diverse, a podcast brought to you by the CNIB advocacy team. Join Nisha, Vivi, and I as we speak to individuals with intersecting identities who live with sight loss as they share their unique stories. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of The Lens Living Diverse. I am doing it solo today, so I am your host, Ben, and today I have my wonderful guest, Ramya Amuthan, and we're going to be talking about her journey with media, as well as her different intersectionalities. So, Ramya, how are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing well. I actually like it this way with you interviewing me.
Yeah,
It's gonna be fun.
exactly. Like I said, it's a dangerous situation, and please be easy on me. I know you're a pro at the skill of interviewing and
Okay.
probing, so please be easy on me.
I'll try not to like backseat host.
Exactly. It's okay if you are. Uh,
Thanks.
so we're gonna start into it. I guess we're gonna kind of get the basics, and I know probably a lot of listeners already know about you, but if you could kind of share about yourself and your different intersectionalities.
Sure. I'll do a bit of the elevator pitch, I guess. Um, I work for Accessible Media Inc. I am the co-host of our live afternoon show daily, Monday to Friday, AMI Audio, AMI TV. It's called Kelly and Ramya. So myself and Kelly McDonald, we speak to a variety of guests, and it's 2 hours of absolute learning and conversation with people from disability communities around Canada. There's so much to learn because people have shared their stories, the events and happenings around the country, just everything in the disability realm. And also, I do a lot of freelance consulting because I have lived experience with low vision. I was born with Leber's congenital amaurosis. I also identify as a Sri Lankan Canadian brown woman. And now I have to say I'm in my early 30s.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And what else do you want to know? Yeah, so I in terms of intersectionality, I'm brown, I'm a woman, and I live with a disability.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing. And uh, definitely going to have some good perspectives today and a good conversation today. So, just out of curiosity, you made mention of being brown, woman, individual for disability. Uh, did you find that any of those identities ever clashed at all?
I think honestly, when it comes to marginalization, and where I felt the most impacted of the marginalized communities, I'd say for me, disability, and being brown. Like the
Mm.
communities I grew up in, one of them being the Sri Lankan community in Toronto, and then the other being the disability community, the uh, groups of blind and low vision people. Those two were the hardest to intertwine
Mm.
because the stigma, like the generational impact of being a person with a physical disability, as a Sri Lankan, it was just absolutely difficult to navigate. And the challenges that come with that are, I'd say, ongoing, um, continue for me all the time, and will continue to present itself in so many different ways as I get older. Just different stages of life, different challenges. But yeah,
Mm.
trying to be a person with a disability in the brown community, I would say, is one of the most um impactful, mostly in a negative way,
Mm.
impactful things that I've had to, deal with through my identity.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense because I know within the Lens Living Diverse, we have had some guests, and especially looking at abroad. So we had some guests from Guyana, we had some guests from the Middle East, people who are African descent, and it's always that theme where it's like
my culture is colliding with my disability
Hmm.
and even the lack of understanding. And Ramya, are you a first generation Canadian or
Yes.
yeah? So
I was
uh,
even born in Sri Lanka and came when I was 2, so it's really my brothers who are first generation Canadians.
yeah, so
Hmm.
it's always that disconnect between culture and like what I hear so many times is the fact that in my culture they don't understand cane use, they don't understand technology, they don't understand the independence of a person who lives with low vision or blindness. So it's always that which one do I pick kind of type deal and how do I educate my culture, right?
Yeah, like there's so much I've been learning in the last several years on how to kind of paint this picture, not just for other people, Ben, but like for myself to understand why it's so difficult and why it feels so frustrating. And one of the things that I've been learning, like with my therapist, is there's the individual and there's the collective, right? And there's so much more to deal with if you are trying to be the individual. And now, obviously, trying to be the individual is contextual, it's relative. Because if you're born with a disability, you're not actively trying to exit the collective, but it's pretty much put upon you, right? So, when I was born with a disability, there's already that aspect of she's not like everyone else. She's not going to be able to um fulfill the identity of what a brown or like a Sri Lankan woman, female, was
Mm,
is expected to be. And so that kind of spins into all these other aspects that you're describing, like the individualism, the independence, the I still want to live a fulfilling life, that kind of thing. There's just a lot around what is expected of you, either A, as a person with a disability in a brown community, or B, as a person in a brown community that disability just doesn't fit that mold.
exactly, exactly. And then even revisiting these places where our parents or where our ancestry is having conversations with people where they were making mention that you go back to, for myself, you go back to a place like Ghana
Yeah.
and the infrastructure and the services, they're not there. You know what I mean?
No, of course not.
Yeah.
Like trying to live life elsewhere.
Yeah. And it's
Mhm.
just like so different to, for especially if you were born in those different places or you have parents who have that entrenched in the culture where it's just like, although you're in Canada, it's still that way of thinking. So I totally get where you're coming from.
Yeah. Do you um like you said, you had many guests on with different backgrounds and scenarios of these intersectionalities, but do you find that there's some common theme for a lot of people who've migrated to Canada and live with disabilities, or first generation Canadians with disabilities who have to deal with like very similar circumstances?
Of course. And once again, listeners, Ramya is interviewing proud
Conversation.
exactly that interviewed conversation prowess. This is why it's awesome to have you today. And uh yeah, very, very good point because it is a theme where it almost seems that it's a place of seeking and it's a place of how do I balance my culture and how do I juggle my culture with my disability. And the one thing I'm noticing, especially in the role, and you probably see this too with what you do as well, is
Mhm.
the fact that disability pride is growing.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that makes a huge difference. But it's also like you're trailblazing for the people ahead of you because at least in my own experience, uh I don't know I don't really know people who've done it before me, like
Mm-hmm.
in the city, in my particular um like intersectionality.
Exactly. And it's growing. Like even a perfect example is uh people are trying to get involved in Carnival, right? Caravana,
Mm-hmm.
as people would say, lost and representing. And just like Mickey mentioned, that doesn't happen. That was never, this is broken ground, even just that representation of disability. So I'm finding that it is people trying to break ground, and I know you're one of them who is a person who's breaking ground. And that kind of leads into another thought of mine, is the fact that you have such a huge platform with Ramya, or Kelly and Ramya. I like to call it Ramya and Kelly. Sorry about that, Kelly. But you have such a huge platform. So how do you feel like your intersectionalities are represented in media? Do you feel that you're conveying it, or you're kind of telling your story?
Yes, I have to. I feel the responsibility. I don't want to say weight because that sounds like pressure, but I definitely feel the responsibility of, this is a big deal to have a platform where I can go on and just completely identify, just be transparent about who I am, share that angle, like everything I talk about or everything I comment on or contextualize comes with my identity, right? How I view those things or go through those things or process. So I definitely feel that this platform is allowing me to actually honestly come to terms with my identity even more than I had when I started. Um, Obviously it's not like the only thing, but I believe when I first started at I was hesitant about that. For the first several years, actually, to every time I would mention something to do with being Sri Lankan or um, even actually just using the word brown to identify,
Mm.
I felt like it was new and strange. And now I'm feeling that I'm settling into being able to identify as brown on air and in disability context. And I think that goes back to like the very first thing we talked about, which is the collision of being brown and being disabled. I think that there was just like so much deeply rooted
Mm.
discomfort with that, that it was a challenge for me to say I'm brown on air while knowing that everything is disability context on the show.
Exactly. And it's almost that venturing in, okay, here's a show on AMI dedicated to disability. Like,
Yeah,
this is what
AMI
people
is dedicated to showcasing disability.
exactly. And this is what people are coming in to see. Like, why do I want to know about this person's background, or why do I want to know about that social justice side of it? So
Mm-hmm.
totally get where you're coming from with that. And even to ask you, like, can you share a little bit more about your journey to media? Like, did you always want to get into media or have that platform?
Yeah, interestingly enough, I never wanted to be in media. My mother
Mm.
was she's was a TV presenter and an on-air personality, and she had much experience in Sri Lanka as well as in Canada on radio, TV, journalism, emceeing, et cetera, et cetera. She's just like very in media and arts. So I saw that. I was kind of involved at that growing up, but I never thought to do that as work for myself. And then I tried a few other things, after high school, going into different programs for post-secondary and such. And I couldn't find what I wanted to do. Like I couldn't find fulfillment, and that's has to do with age and all that as well. But
Mm.
eventually I took radio at Seneca as a broadcasting program, and I loved it because it was practical. It was something that I fell into quite well, and found that I could do work that felt good, that I was good
Mm.
at, but also found value in. And of course, coming into accessible media, I started to really just grasp at how meaningful this particular work is. Speaking to other people with disabilities, sharing my own stories, and it's just an honest, sincere way for me to have access to this platform.
Yeah, and it's so interesting that you say that you sort of like just fell into it.
Yeah, definitely. I almost denied it, right? Like before coming into it, I was like, no, I'm never gonna be on radio. No, thank you. And then and then eventually I was like, oh, actually, this is something I'm really good at. Pretty much enjoy.
It's almost like I just think of Spider-Man and Venom. It's just like it's going through your veins and it's just taking over you, and you're like, no, no, I reject it.
That's
But
the way
then,
Kelly describes it. Yeah.
oh yeah,
Like you resisted for so long.
it just pulled you in. You couldn't escape it.
Yeah, exactly. No, but I honestly love it. Like now I'm 5+ years in and I'm really starting to hit my stride with how the show and the work is affecting me, and it's important. Like I find it very, very um satisfying. I find that there's so much growth in having an opportunity like this.
And it's so key. It's so key to have that representation. And this is not just a platform where it's okay, you're an actor on a commercial or you do acting somewhere, right? This is
Mm,
somewhere something that you actually have a voice that you are extending to everybody, all the listeners.
100%. And my voice is helping others with their voice on the platform. And I think that's where I find the service part of it, right? Like being able to extend this out to the community. And every time, like every day, we're featuring people from the disability community to come on and talk about themselves and have very candid conversations. Like we really do um place ourselves in the ways that encourage others to really share what's going on, really feel like they can be themselves, or we can talk about our challenges and our woes, along with the things that make us happy and proud, um, and offer like, you know, sentimentalities to each other. So that when you leave a show feeling like this is the kind of work you're doing, it feels good.
hmm And the thing I love about it is just the dynamic. You have Kelly, who has his intersectionalities and even his generation, and then you have your generation, and it's almost like it just comes together. And I bet when you both are recording or you both are together, you're almost like learning so much and taking away so much from each other.
That's such a good point. Often I've thought about that actually, Ben, because he and I come from different generations, as you said. We also like he identifies as a black man with a visual impairment. I identify as a brown woman with low vision, and from anywhere from language use
Hmm
to what was normalized for Kelly growing up, but also one big, big thing for me was when I came into the show, I was young. I was like 25
hmm
and still learning about myself, very much so. Um, and as I had pointed out, like in this conversation, right, I was not even comfortable with certain things like identity specific language, or over the years, you can tell that I'm growing into myself. Like what I thought of 2 years ago is not necessarily what I'm thinking now about my own identity, right? So you're seeing that on air. Whereas when I came into the show, I felt like Kelly was at a spot where he knew himself on radio, on TV, in media.
hmm
Like he was like I saw him, and I'm not speaking for him, I'm speaking of my perspective of how I uh took him in. I was like, oh, okay, Kelly knows who he is on air, or he knows his identity on air. And that's not to say that he doesn't have a growth mindset. It's just like I was in such a different place. I was like, who am I on air? Who am I in media? And that's because I didn't have the mentorship necessarily, other than my mom, who I just took in growing up. And even for her, she's not a person with a disability. So it was just a very different, connection to media.
Exactly. And know what? Even with your mom, it's a whole different ball game because as you said, she's not an individual for disability.
Yep.
And then she's pretty much hosting towards the Sri Lankan community.
Exactly. Oh
And
yeah, definitely.
yeah, so it's just like that one niche, right? It's not like it's worldwide, so it is a different ball game for yourself and how to find yourself on air for sure, and then incorporate yourself as well.
So when I'm sculpting myself or when anyone's sculpting themselves as a host, obviously we go through the growth of it and it's always a learning curve. But for me, my mom's style of hosting and all of that was the only thing I kind of could identify with. And so I started there. That was my starting point. And then slowly I started to realize, well, this is not who I am on air though. So over the years, you can really tell how much my hosting style has changed, how much my demeanor on air has changed, and like how I connect with people feels very different from the way that my mom connected with people.
And it's definitely seen for sure. So when we were speaking about mentorship and you made mention of your mom as well as Kelly, was there anybody else or was it just like you finding yourself?
I'd say it's the latter. Like it's more me finding myself because I'm obviously influenced by people who are pros at what they do, right? But that feels like a different aspect altogether for me. Like someone who's an amazing radio or TV host or someone who's really great at what they do is just one aspect of me kind of like paying attention. But the most important part for me was how can I feel natural on air? Like how can I that's the part that clicks, like would make me click to the work that I do, make me feel the value in doing this every single day, right? And so connecting with myself and my identity, it's very internal for me. Like connecting with who I am and what I can offer people is pretty much what I'm always continuing to discover and learn about.
And I find, and there's been plenty of times where I've listened to Kelly and Ramya, and I found that, at least from my perspective, it really sounds like you have found your identity. And there's so many people that I speak to, and it's just like when I listen to Kelly and Ramya, it's like I'm hanging out with two friends. I'm chilling with two friends, and we're just shooting the breeze, and we're
Yeah.
just bringing a topic and talking about it. And I find that you can't be in authentic when it comes to people feeling that way, for sure.
Right, right. For sure. Like Kelly and I had chemistry from day one. We are friends
Yeah,
for real.
yeah.
Which is so helpful because exactly what you're saying. If you're comfortable with somebody, especially your co-host in this context, then you can feel like you can challenge opinions or just have warm conversations or even vulnerable conversations on air and forget that this is, live show and people are listening, that kind of aspect of it. Like you're more likely to not pay attention to what this actually is and just converse, kind of like this podcast. And then also, there is an aspect of like being good at bringing the sincere and genuine and authentic sides of people out. And I think that's really important when it comes to talking specifically to marginalized communities and people with different intersectionalities, experiences that come with that challenge of being able to uh, be vulnerable with people or have vulnerable conversations. Like that's a challenge, right? In and of itself. Because when you're a person with a disability, I think there are a lot of ways we cope. And one of those ways is to not actually talk about the challenges or, how hard something is, how much of a struggle you're going through. But Kelly and I make it a point to bring up all these sides.
Yeah, then that's straight up strength, because even adding a person with a disability, a racialized person, a diverse person, any sort of diverse identities. And it's been so long, especially up in the disability community and disability organizations, where we were told so many times, why are you bringing that up? Why does that matter? This is about blindness and low vision. So it's so encouraging that people are able to have these conversations, as well as it being on a platform such as AMI.
Yeah, like it's empowering,
Yes.
right? Like if somebody like me is listening to the show, right? Someone who can identify with a lot of the things that I talk about that I go through. It feels very empowering. It feels like there, the community aspect. It feels like there is somebody you can kind of relate to, look up to maybe, but definitely feel like it's not just you alone. And we have to have these conversations that bring up all the diverse parts of us. Because, or else it's very, what's the word? Like it's very one dimensional.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously we're not one dimensional people.
Mm-hmm. No, we're 5D.
Yeah.
We're 5D, exactly. There's some people out there 7D as well, as 7-dimensional.
It's
But
complex.
exactly. So something I want to go into, and this actually really warms my heart. And I I remember when I first heard about your show and you were introducing yourself and introducing Ramya Amuthan, and just hearing your name, and then even fast forwarding to Nazi being a part of AMI, and so many different cultures with different kind of names. The one thing I was just so interested, I was reading an article actually the other day, and they're making mention of people on TV changing their names. So it's easily pronounced, or because they want to get jobs. So even what's your take on that?
Oh
Having
man.
a different name.
This might be the first time that I like talk about this out loud on a pod, because this never came up on Kelly and Ramya. So first of all, I appreciate this thread. But basically when I first started, this goes back way before AMI. Like this is just childhood onwards, right? From school to work, any kind of work experience, and then now into AMI, where I'm kind of settled in now. But basically, I anglicized my name for so long, forever, until up until 2-ish years ago. And the way that I would say my name is Ramya Amuthan, and that's because that's the way that everybody said my name. So I took that on and I thought, okay, of course, like what else would I do? And it would never even crossed my mind that I would say my name the way it's supposed to be traditionally pronounced. And something happened 2 years ago. I was speaking with one of my friends of Chinese background. And it wasn't a friend, actually. I totally lied. She was a stranger that I met through a group experience. And she would only say her name in the traditional sense, the way it was authentically supposed to be pronounced. And I asked her about it. I don't know what prompted me, but I asked her, like, it's really awesome that you say your name until people get it right. And why do you do that? And she just, gave me her perspective on it. And it really, really clicked. It honestly made such an impact for me that day that I came to AMI one day and I just started saying my name the way it's supposed to be said. That was it. Like I on air went from it's really funny when I think about it, but I basically came on air on like a Monday and all of a sudden I was no longer Ramya Amuthan. I was Ramya Amuthan. And Kelly was like, is there something you want to talk about? Like off air, obviously. And he's like, did you change your name over the weekend? And I was like, I'm gonna start saying my name. And this is when I started hosting, lead hosting in certain circumstances.
Yeah.
So if Kelly was off or et cetera, et cetera. And I just started saying my name, Ramya Amuthan, and he was like, you need to redo this for me. So like, what? How are we pronouncing your name? And I told him like, this is how it's pronounced in Tamil. That's the other thing. I stopped calling my language Tamil, which is the anglicized version of
Mm-hmm.
Tamil, and just started saying words the way they were meant to be said. And
Mm-hmm.
oh my God, I swear, when I started saying my name properly, I something shifted in me, like for real. I
Mm-hmm.
cannot really put words to that, but something shifted in me where I was like, yeah, this is who I am. And not that I would all the time correct people, but people know the way my name is supposed to be pronounced now. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
for years and years and like decades of my life, people didn't. And people came up to me who've known me for so long, who've known me since I was a kid, and said, "Oh, you're saying your name differently now. Have I been saying your name wrong this whole time?" I'm like, "Yes, but so have I, you know?"
Yeah, yeah. It's so important. And I love how you made mention how it's empowering.
It is
Mm,
hugely empowering. Like I found strength in saying my name correctly. Like every time there was a time at the beginning of this um change where every time I said my name properly, I felt like a chill go down my spine. It was
mm,
so visceral and it was physical. And I think people can identify with that, honestly. Like even if you don't have that um big of a reaction and response to saying your name correctly, it does impact you. It's just like language. Like when you can say words that you identify with and not just kind of box yourself, you or go by the right pronoun that feels like you. Whatever it is, all these different examples, it does empower you.
And it's such a beautiful thing because as it made mention, uh, you having your show, the audio book review,
Right.
and just having that with Nazi and pronouncing her name wonderfully. And then I know Amir comes on the air sometimes as well, and just it it's empowering. It feels like the person's welcomed,
Yes.
and we get it. We get it. We're all different cultures. Sometimes our mouths don't move the way we want our mouths to move, you know? So some
Right.
words we can't develop it in our mouths, but at the same time, it doesn't mean that you can't try, or it doesn't mean that
Exactly.
it's just like, oh, like I'm gonna call you Fred or whatever, or I'm not gonna say that. So it is so interesting. And actually, I remember I remember when I was younger and just getting the announcement. It's just like, Ben Akuku, can you come to the front office or whatever? And
Oh
it's just
no.
like, oh my gosh. And
Yeah, like who are they
just
even talking to?
yeah, and just like you, I just never corrected until like yourself. One day I'm like, nah, like y'all gotta correct it. Y'all gotta
Mm-hmm.
say it right because that's my
Mm-hmm.
name. So
100%. And that's the thing, right? Don't you feel, or hadn't you felt like when people say your name wrong, or worse, when we say our names incorrectly to appease, um,
mhm,
that we're not us. Like I
mhm,
felt that I was putting on a show to
mhm,
somebody somewhere, but I wasn't connecting with myself. And it's a big deal, honestly.
And actually, funny story also, when I used to work at a school, I remember when I first came in, I introduced myself, I'm Mr. Kwako, and people were like, what? What? We're just gonna call you Mr. A, right?
Right.
And I remember by the end of when I finished working at the school, the students were correcting anybody who would have trouble. They're like, it's Mr. Kwako. It's
Yes.
Mr. Aquaco, Aquaco. It's easy to say Aquaco. And I'm like, wow, I
Exactly.
love it.
No, that's amazing. That's amazing because same thing. Like I just phonetically write my name down
Yeah.
so people get it. And I am very forgiving, as you said. Like if people can't say it, they can't say it. But at the end of the day, I know I'm saying my name correctly. And I think that's what's made the biggest difference, at least the biggest shift.
No, that is beautiful for sure. And Noah, let's go back into the show. Like I said, you have such a big platform. It's that ability to share stories about intersectionality, talk about diverse issues, talk about even just disability justice type issues.
Yeah.
So from that part, here's you folks as the host. But what I want to know is how has that experience been having so many different types of guests and so many different types of stories? How has that experience been for you?
The fact that for 2 hours a day for 5 days, a week, people come on and they are basically teaching me, like they're schooling me on their experiences, their journeys, the way, the grind that people had to put in to be where they are right now, all these different things, is so, like, there's nothing like it. Because basically every day, we're offering people this space, right? The airspace to come on and share a bit of themselves with us. And we're the ones gaining from that. Like Kelly and I are the ones gaining from that. I all the time, like I believe, throughout life we're just learning and learning and learning and learning.
Mm-hmm.
And so these are just teeny tiny pieces of that bigger picture of how much we're learning. I love um I guess, there's so many experiences on air, off air, where people have corrected me. Like I'd go in with an assumption, right? For example,
Mm-hmm.
um, I identify as having low vision, but there are a lot of different words that people use in the blindness spectrum, right? Blind,
Mm-hmm.
low vision, visually impaired, vision impaired, partial sight, vision loss, etc. But I took that language and I think like identified somebody as deaf slash hearing impaired once. And they
Mm-hmm.
corrected me. They were like, we go in the deaf community, it's deaf or hard of hearing. And I remember thinking, oh my God, why would I even assume that? Right. But that
Mm-hmm.
little example, um, and this person stepping up to educate me made me realize like I can't go in with an assumption like that. I want to ask people how they identify before assuming that there are
Mm-hmm.
parallels in different parts of the disability community. Stuff like that. Like that's just one example, but these are huge. If I'm having moments like that as the host, imagine the kinds of learning people are having at home listening, right? And hopefully as well the people who are joining us on air and what they're being taught or willing to take in.
And I like the flexibility out of that. And I like the fact that you're just like I said, flexible with learning and not taking offense to it, where it's like,
Oh
how
God,
dare
yeah.
they tell me this? And
No, I have zero ego. Maybe like a tiny bit of ego, but I really actively
um,
work on not having ego on the show. Um, we've been talking about names and that kind of thing as well. Like making sure that you completely do someone, um, like give them the empowerment. Tell us how you want to talk to us on air, or like where you want to go with it.
pass on the baton. That's such a beautiful thing, and this is why look at this. This is a perfect example that I'm learning from you even today, and bringing to the lens living diverse, right? Like
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
learning that yeah, you can't make assumptions. Of course, you want to listen to people's stories. You want to grow. So,
Absolutely, because or else you're not practicing what you preach, right? Like if
mhm,
I'm out there sharing my story and I need the safe space to do that, and Kelly provides me the safe space, like our team makes the show what it is and to make us comfortable talking and sharing and listening, we want to be able to pay that forward and directly um offer that to the people who are coming on the show.
well, of course, of course. And I know what we've been talking a lot about, like on air and even as we have been speaking, you have such a huge platform for AMI. And something that I find very important is community mobilization, right? So as a whole, for individuals to kind of get the word out, kind of get the message out, and in this case about intersectionality, and you are, I know personally, a huge advocate, a huge educator. Can you give advice to people who want to have that community mobilization in, like, perhaps starting a group or uh, I guess getting out into the community or starting a Facebook page? Any advice for those individuals?
Honestly, and it's coming from the place that we've been exploring through this conversation already, it's the more of yourself you can put out there, the sincere, authentic, um, vulnerable self that you can put out into the world, the more that you will draw in the energy of people who want to connect with you. And
Mm,
we see this in community all the time. You get um, hooked up with people, right? You get connected with people by a third person, mutual friends. If you're going through something, like how many times in your life, Ben, have you been told, hey, I know this person who's going through vision loss, or I know this person who wants to learn the iPhone or whatever.
mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering if you want to talk to them. These are things that people pick up because it's not because you're out there going, hey, if you know someone who wants to talk blindness, come find me. That's not how it
Mm-hmm.
works, right? In the world, like we find connection through finding ourself in the world. And the more that you can identify with yourself and the more that you can share that side of you out with people, express yourself, um, or be able to like just get to that place and stage where you can share, the more that you find naturally you're connecting with people who want to do the same. And that's how community starts building. Yes, of course, there's the logistic side of, posting and actually starting the Facebook group and
Mm-hmm.
promoting, et cetera, et cetera. But all that comes from how you put yourself there to begin with. And so you can't fake that. You can't fake being who you are, accepting who you are, willing to share who you are with others, and then those people find you.
I love
This
it.
is the way that has happened for me. So that's what's my truth.
I love it. I love that mentality. If you build it, they will come.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much.
Exactly. And it's such a beautiful mentality and it's so natural. And I feel like even speaking to you today, especially hearing your story and hearing your connections with people and your ability to express your diversity, I feel it's so organic. It's not this forcing. Of course, it's a little bit of push, right? In
Mm-hmm.
terms of pronouncing your name right and
Sure.
expressing your different identities, but it's almost this organic build it. And like I said, they will come.
Yeah. I mean, the less you resist who you are, and we have to go through the stages to accept who we are anyway, but the less that you can, the less you find the need to resist your own identities and parts of yourself, the more willing you are to just put yourself out there. And when you do that, people find you, people are drawn to you.
Wise words, wise words. Kelly's a lucky individual to have you as a co-host.
I
Keep
might be
him
even
grounded.
paraphrasing things he said already. So who knows? Go back in the
keep,
archives.
keep him grounded for sure. Maybe keep you grounded. So we are coming up to the end, which I honestly, it's just I could sit here another like 2 hours
Sure,
and
yeah, same.
pick
Nobody
your
would want to listen to that
nah,
podcast though.
nah,
It'd be
that'd
long.
be the best rated podcast and pick your brain for sure. So I want to end it out by kind of letting you have any last thoughts towards the listeners, anything that you want promoted or anything that you want the listeners to know about.
Well, if you want to check out Kelly and Ramya, because we've talked about it for like an hour, you you can do that. If you go to ami.ca/schedules, you can find out because we're on your basic cable package. So you can find us there. You can also find us on Instagram by following Accessible Media Inc. And Kelly and Ramya, we have our own handle as well. And if you go to amiaudio.ca, then you can stream us live 2 to 4 p.m. Eastern on weekdays.
Excellent. And
It's
then
like I've never done this before.
you're a pro. Oh my gosh. We gotta get you to do an outro. Also, the what you call it, the audio book review.
That's right. Yeah, that's my weekly pod with Nasreen, and it's really fun. We just basically talk audiobooks with guests and contributors. And if you want to search that, that is a podcast, AMI audiobook review. Kelly and Ramya is also a podcast, by the way. I knew I was missing something.
Excellent. And if you would like to share a little bit of your consulting, is that something that could be shared?
I don't know. If you find me on Instagram and Twitter, then we can connect about any kind of access consulting. So just look for All Rams, ALLRAMZ.
Excellent. Doing big things. And any last words you want to share with the listeners and the audience?
Well, I just want to say this was an amazing conversation. We really, whenever we talk, we always get to like so many interesting things, and it makes a difference in how I move forward. So thank you so much for inviting me on.
No problem, Ramya. And thank you so much for coming today to the Lens Living Diverse, stopping by. And listeners, you better watch out. Ramya promised me that she's going to recruit me to Kelly and Ramya, the Kelly and Ramya show. So it's going to be
God.
the Benny, Kelly and Ramya show. I can't wait. I can't wait.
We already have a name.
Exactly.
I had no idea.
Exactly. But all jokes aside, thank you so much for coming today, Ramya. We all really appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right, excellent. So thank you for listening to The Lens Living Diverse. If you like today's episode, you're more than welcome to listen to it on any of your favorite platforms. Also, if you want to know a little bit more about D&I and the CNIB, just go on a CNIB page at www.cnib.ca, click on advocacy, and then click on We Are CNIB. Once again, click on advocacy, and then click on We Are CNIB. And then also, if you want to be a part of the Lens Living Diverse, or you have a good show idea, you could email us at advocacy@cnib.ca. Once again, advocacy@cnib.ca. So once again, I just want to thank Ramya. I was your host for today of the Lens Living Diverse. So thank you for listening. Peace.